Okay, hello. Welcome back to Nothing in the Crypt. What the fuck? Hang on. Ugh. Alright. It's almost October, which means fuck it. It's Halloween. It is my favorite holiday though. I'm gonna talk about addiction after I get the rest of this shit off my chest. Chris Christie, if he's not eating something, he's saying the stupidest shit that I've ever heard in my fucking life. I saw a great meme, and it was comparing him to Porky Pig because he called Donald Trump, said he was going to call him Donald Duck or something stupid. I don't know. I didn't watch that debate because nobody gives a flying fuck. Nobody fucking cares. Especially about most of the fucking assholes that are up there. I hate Nikki Haley. She's such a stupid bitch. She just has that pinched face of like a fucking shrew of a woman. Like, I'm sure her husband drinks heavily. I hate her. I love when Candace Owens fucking rips into her. But yeah, every time Chris Christie stops eating, he just says something so dumb. He is one of the ugliest fucking people I've ever seen in my life. And also, when you look at the polls and you see how much support Donald Trump has, one would think that it would behoove one to not say something very inflammatory like that, or to even bring him up at all. Why are you talking about him? That has nothing to do with like what your plans are and your ideas are. He doesn't have plans or ideas because, as you know, people who acquire type 2 diabetes, it starts to literally make you dumb unless you start tackling it, which clearly by the size of him, he has not. So, and if anything, he'd be, what's the rich uncle that dives into the money? He'd be that fucking guy. He's not Donald Duck. He's that fucking guy. All the, I think shit's about to get entertaining. More entertaining. Maybe more entertaining and less frustrating in regards to Hunter and Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. The stuff that keeps coming out now is like more and more specific. You know, it started with there are phone calls, there are bank records, and now it's there are phone calls to this specific person. And here's all of these bank records, and then all of these other ones, and then here's all of the family's bank records and money dealings. And then if you saw, Byron Donalds used to do something with real estate as a lawyer, or some shit like that. But when they put up all of the Biden's like money and business holdings and all these things, and he said, as somebody who's done this before, my first thought when I looked at them was that this was some kind of business holding, which that's not good, because your personal accounts and your business shit and all that stuff should not have the model of a business holding, because that literally means that you're running some kind of business, which we all know they are. It's running a marvelous money laundering service through Ukraine. Ew. And say what you want about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know that she looks like a bull terrier. And she's got the skin of Ray Liotta. She's a little rough around the edges. But that bitch gets shit done. And I agree with just about every fucking thing that comes out of her mouth. her delivery can be a little, but I find that entertaining. It's not off-putting for me. I think it makes me like her more. And she's so easy to hate if you're like on the other side of shit, or on, I don't know, their sides are like, there's no sides anymore. Everybody's just fucked. But she's great. She's going after getting, what the fuck was his name? Oh, Mayorkas. His salary reduced down to $1 and fired, essentially. Which seems like it's still in the process of happening. He hasn't been kicked out the door yet, so holy shit. That'd be fucking funny. $1 is too much, though. But anyway, back to the Hunter shit. So all the goofy shit that, like, this fucking idiot's done. And this asshole has Secret Service protection. Which, I mean, nobody gives a fuck about him. Maybe his drug dealer does, but that's about it. But not RFK Jr., who has applied multiple times. It's never denied like that. People are not denied Secret Service protection if you're running. And they just flat out didn't answer him for an extended period of time, and then they fucking denied him. Which, again, like, it's because they can't assassinate him. So they're just really fucking hoping that somebody else will. Which, somebody almost got in the other day who's posing as security. So they know what they're doing. They absolutely cannot kill that man. Like, you can't go for a third one. Because we're all, like, we already know. They fucked up when they released all the fucking documents where they admitted to all that shit. Because they didn't know he was going to run. So then as soon as he started running and they didn't just, like, squash him out immediately and they started gaining traction, they reclassified all those fucking documents. Like, they're very intentional and not subtle at all with what they do. You can tell it's a group of fucking nerds that have been operating without, like, the eye of technology on them for a really long time. And now it's like giving your fucking grandparent, like, a phone or an iPad. It's just fucking shit up left and right. And very curious to see what happens with the Trump indictment shit. They're so fucking stupid. They are, like, so ham-handed with what they're doing. The judge that just valued Mar-a-Lago at, like, I think it was like 18 million, something stupid. Like, that's not even remotely close to what it costs or is valued at. So that they could kick him and all of his business dealings and shit out of New York and say that he lied about its value. Let me fucking tell you something. As a human being who lives in Florida. The price of, like, it's so fucking laughable. And again, they're doing this thing where they're being so angry and ridiculous that they're, like, pushing other people into his arms. You're just pushing voters into this man's fucking arms. Everybody in Florida already is, like, pretty for him. Oh, I'm sorry. But, like, I just know the prices of the homes around me that are, the size of his fucking garage, that are like 15 million. So we all know, it's like you're not even close. Like, you're lying to an extent where it's like you're being ridiculous. And then that insults our fucking intelligence. So, again, it's all just, well, it's about to be, something's going to happen. Also, this is a little bit more tinfoil hat than I like to get, but before I forget it. So, I'm pretty sure that it was a stage video where you can, like, give the Alexa, like, the pre-done commands. But there was that little creepy video of a guy asking Alexa about the 2024 elections and it replying, there will not be 2024 elections, and then like a couple other things about like the outcome of the war. I might be convoluting two different videos. But anyway, whatever, creepy, but also that's very easily something you could stage. And then I listened to Russell Brand's podcast. Still, you know, I don't know if he did all the shit they're saying he did. I don't care. That doesn't hold any bearing on the correctness of what he's saying. And that's, again, what those fucks don't understand. It doesn't matter if he did it or didn't do it. That does not magically... I mean, I know that for some people, that they'll be like, oh, nothing... You have to take the emotion out of it. Even if he did do something, that does not make everything that he has said that was true not true. So, it was his very last one he did. And this guy has been doing these studies on, because we all know Google is extremely biased with things. And they had proof that they were like allowing, you know, outside sources to influence it, political or not, or whatever the fuck it was. But I don't use Google. I use DuckDuckGo. And it's not as convenient, but you can immediately see the difference when your searches are not curated, just for the fucking record. But he was getting these insane results, and they have proof of all this. But there was a moment in time where for like 40 minutes, Google shut down everyone's access to the internet. And The Guardian reported on that, so that is true. And they were giving the statistics of, there was also a brief moment in time where, I can't remember the reason for it, but Google shut off the biases. It's literally like a button, you know, click on and off, and it stopped sending voting reminders to just Democrats. And there were like a couple other things like that it did. And like they're very open about it, many of these like things that exist. And the swing of the votes that Google has the ability to manipulate was between like 20 and 60%, which is fucking huge. So I got so creeped out listening to this guy talk about that, and then thinking about, you know, the election next year, because the guy was complaining. He's like, you know, we need to get a grip on this. We need to get a fucking handle on it before the election next year, or it's not going to be a real election. And I was like, oh my God, these are all such creepy things. But you can see how my mind and mental gymnastics with that shit. Anyway. I had to go home last week and visit my brother and sister-in-law and my nephew and eat food that made me violently ill. Not because it was bad quality of food. I eat so restrictively, and I went fucking batshit, which that's like the worst way you could do that, to go from eating very clean and like rarely drinking to just fucking guzzling alcohol at the airport all day and eating fucking bags of beef jerky and then ice cream. I fucked myself up with the sugar. But as I was home, I was going through my dad's stuff. My parents were both dead. And we just had so much shit left over from both of them in the garage that we just haven't had time to go through because I live far away. I'm from New York. And it got me thinking that, and I've, you know, had kind of vague conversations with people about this anyway. Everybody needs to get themselves healthy And you better start informing yourself of just like some basics. You know, I'm very lucky. My dad like taught me how to suture when I was like 4. Literally is when he started teaching me. He would bring home like pigskin from the fucking hospital and suture kits. And, you know, we were dissecting frogs and shit like that. And I wanted to be a doctor my whole life. And I got to like go into the hospital and do internships and shit, which made me decide not to be one ultimately. But, so I'm lucky. I have a, you know, more than basic knowledge of, you know, I know how to put an IV in. I know how to fucking draw blood. I know how to suture. I can perform a carpal tunnel surgery. I just don't think that would be the emergency situation that would be called upon for. I can also do spider veins. I would never do that to myself though, because I don't like needles. But I've always been very weary of doctors because my father was one. And my dad did shit a little differently. Like he was born in Belfast, so he came over from literally like they're getting like blown up and shit. And they were very poor. And he got full scholarships based, you know, just academically. And he was a cool dude. He did tons of shit. But when he went to medical school, you know, most people, if you are going to continue past medical, like, you know, basic medical school and go into a specialty, if you're going to go through something that requires like the surgical program, which is a lot of years, 99.9% of the time, you're going to go into some kind of, you know, specific area because that's where the fucking money is. My dad was just like curious. And he wanted to know everything. I wanted to know how to do everything, which is fucking great because I do that too. Obviously didn't take it to this extent. But he went through the surgical program to become an emergency room physician. So he did not have to do any of that shit. But it made him a far better emergency room physician than probably anybody has ever been. And because that is the bar that he set for me of like how an ER doc can be, it would serve everybody in this fucking world so much better if every emergency room physician had to do that. You know, my dad would very often reattach, you know, fingers, you know, stuff small like that. I think he did a whole hand on one occasion, like, you know, started the process while they were waiting. Like, you know, that's the time frame of like when shit gets fucked up, when you're waiting for the surgeon. And he just had such a wealth of knowledge of ailments and things that could possibly be wrong with you that he legitimately was not guessing. And please understand, you know, I have the utmost respect for doctors, but it's just like cops. I have the utmost respect for fucking law enforcement, but there are bad apples everywhere in every profession, including the medical one, more now than ever. But even when I was, you know, growing up, even my fucking father, I can say this because, you know, this is kind of reflects poorly on him. I shouldn't though, because it was true. He always told me that I should not, if I am given the option, go with the female doctor. And he did not mean it in a demeaning way, in the way that you're thinking. He didn't really mean it in a demeaning way at all. He was speaking to a reality that we now see is super fucking prevalent. He told me that when he was in medical school, so my dad had a 4.0 his whole life. He had to, because they had no money. He had to get all of his fucking schooling paid for. And he was very, very bright. And when he went to apply to medical school at Georgia State, well, he applied other places too, but him and a girl he was friends with, who was also in medical school with him, who had a 2.8. My father had a 4.0. This woman had a 2.8. They applied to all of the same medical schools. She got into every fucking one. And my father did not get into every single one. Do you understand how fucking incredibly dangerous that is? Why the fuck? It should be that way with everything, but especially when it comes to a medical degree. I think everybody universally can agree that the person you want taking care of you is the one that is best qualified and knows the most. If that happens to be a female, fucking amazing. I don't give a shit if you're a dude or a chick or what fucking nationality you are. I do give a shit what your fucking GPA was. I want to know how well you do on every fucking thing that you've ever done in medical school. Not about you, just that. That should always be the only thing that is taken into fucking account. But because he gave me that harsh reality at a young age, I've never had that not be the case, unfortunately. I've had 2... I can hear the fucking angry comments already. I don't give a fuck. Preemptively. I'm just telling you my own personal experience. You're biased because you put that in your head. Maybe. I don't fucking know. My dad, I didn't live at home. I had moved out of home already much before this, but I was having pain in my lower abdomen. And my dad was off for the weekend. Because normally I would just be like, hey, I'm coming in. And he would have been the person to fucking whatever. So, and this was when everybody was living apart. They weren't divorced, but he was living in an apartment out in Oneida or some shit. So, he just wasn't around. And I went into the hospital. And I knew all the doctors. They were nice. They've known me for years. And it happened to be the one woman doctor who was super fucking nice. And I really liked her a lot. But she told me I either had a UTI or, since I was in college, an STD. And I was like, no. I go, it feels like I have to shit, but haven't shit in maybe 10 days. And no, just very insistent. Offered to write me scripts for things, not even knowing if I had. She wanted to write me the shit for the UTI. And then she's like, oh, but then it causes yeast infection, so then I'll have to write you a script for this. And I was like, no, because that's not what it is. And it ended up being my appendix. So she sends me home. My appendix ends up bursting. So by the time I go back in, my dad, somebody's called him by then, and he's met me in there. And, they obviously immediately figured it out, because by then it had burst. But that was my first experience with a woman doctor. And then my second experience was actually quite recently. And I went in just to get, blood work, get all my vitals once over, check on my heart, because my dad died of a heart attack, which I'll get a little more into because he was on all the shit that you're supposed to be on to prevent it, but that I know doesn't. But first of all, this was during the brief moment of time in Florida, like the 6 weeks where people like actually listened and like put masks on and shit. So I, you know, at the point when, you know, most people were like, you know, this is dumb, this isn't working, and all of the information was coming out in the videos of people, you know, proving that masks don't work, particularly the little cloth ones that everybody fucking wore. And then the little, like, paper surgical ones, those also in particular, because that's what they were handing out at all the fucking doctor's offices. So I walk in, and I'm sitting on the table waiting so we can go over all my blood shit, and I can hear her from the hallway, like the ultimate fucking Karen, just a cunt. She just sounded like a fucking cunt. And she's like ripping into the poor fucking nurses up front because apparently they keep letting patients walk back and be put in the rooms without wearing masks. And as soon as I heard that come out of her mouth, I was like, oh, you don't know anything. Like, I'm fearful of letting you interpret fucking anything. And at the time I was going in to make sure, because a lot of the females in my family have fucking lupus, which, again, now I know that that's not just something you get. It's preventable. But it was before I was fully all the way there with all of my strings and tinfoil hat shit. But she came in the room and tried to make me put a mask on, which I did not. Obviously. And I was trying to just make it a civil, me just leaving. Of course, I ended up being a condescending fucking bitch at one point and just speaking to her like she was 4. And so I just... that was my experience with female doctors. In the grand scheme of things, I've had lots of bad experiences with male doctors. Your regular average, just like, you know, your family physician or the fucking ER doc you end up with in urgent care somewhere, anywhere. There's nothing that says that they need to know jack shit about, like, diet and nutrition. Which is fucking crazy because you can mitigate so much fucked up shit out of your body by proper diet and exercise, which is, I'm sorry, I get very fucking frustrated by this. So the reason I brought all that up was because I was going through my dad's shit and I found his little medical bag, and I didn't know he had diabetes. Makes total sense that he did though, because of I knowing the way he ate and drank. And he wasn't overweight, he just ate poorly. And he drank a lot. And he had done a shit ton of drugs not his whole life, but he had done a stint as a drug addict as well. And I don't know what he was all doing at the end, but I know he was probably just drinking a whole lot. But, so he was on all the diabetes meds they put you on. He was on fucking statins. All the heart shit they put you on when they tell you need to do what? Lower your fucking cholesterol. The stuff that they give you, the statins, all of the drugs they put you on for that stuff, not only does it fuck up the shit in your gut, but it fucks up the other functions of shit in your heart. And, you know, this is just my opinion, but the fact that they, you know, if you go on statins and that shit, you've got one foot in the fucking grave. And it's fucking batshit to me because your liver, only 20% of the cholesterol it pumps out is from fat. Because fat isn't bad for you. Good fats are not bad for you. at all. In fact, they're vital. And most of I think it's like 60% maybe, of the cholesterol your liver pumps out is from carbs and like wheat and shit. If you do 6 weeks on a no carb and no fruit diet, you can, I think the one lady from like Living Springs Retreat, which I love, you should look that fucking Instagram page up. She's amazing. She's so fucking just like knowledgeable. But they have, they've proven this. They have, these actual cases they show you, and there's a lot of them, where people go in on like 90 units of insulin. And by the time they leave from this bitch adjusting their fucking food and exercise and like a whole bunch of other shit too, like even the way you sit and your posture and the way that you breathe, like all of that stuff. And he left on 10. They have a 50% success rate of putting cancer in remission with the exact same diet. Butter is good for you. K2, which I scream about all the fucking time. Red meat, eggs, aged cheeses, fermented foods. I love kimchi. That's the stuff that's going to clear your heart out. Dandelion root tea. Even something as simple as that. Pomegranates are really good for your heart. There's so much shit that you can do. At the end of the day, like wheat and shit like that is what's fucking you up. Wheat and sugar. That is the shit that's fucking you up. Not fruit. Not fucking steak. Not egg yolks. You have to really understand that the place that all of this information has come from is big food lobbying in tandem with big medicine, because if they use the food to make you sick, then they use the medicine to make you better. Meanwhile, all of it's just fucking killing you. You have to really figure out what you want the quality of your second half of your fucking life to be, because I don't know how accessible it is to find somebody who actually is going to keep you healthy and, off medication. I think it's like the average American is on like 3 meds or some shit. I freeball fucking life. That is why I'm so wildly unhinged. But I see the difference in the quality of life I have to people who and I can say this, I was on SSRIs for a while. I was on them recreationally, part and parcel of being a fucking addict at one point. And it's not a cure. It's a treatment of a symptom. It's, you're treating a single symptom of something. And it will, mitigate it right up until you stop taking it. Unless it's Xanax, because if you stop taking it, you're going to go through withdrawals and you can fucking die. Literally. So you have to pick your path. And how, you may not think it matters now. Like, I feel fine doing this. You're going to feel fucked up later. And I can't think of something more terrible than to spend, any amount of your later years being in such fucking, physical and mental pain. That's crazy. I'm so tired already just from the little short fucked up life I've lived. Fuck that. So yeah, start learning some shit. I'm oddly qualified for if the fucking world ends, because I can live out in the woods forever because of my dad. I just bought some organ meats yesterday. I'm brining some beef hearts that I'm going to smoke on the Traeger in a couple days. And then I've got... So I love liver and onions. My mom used to fucking eat it. So I tried it and I fucking liked it. So I've got some liver soaking. I'll probably do a video on that one of how to make it edible. Because it's so fucking good for you. Organ meats are so good for you. I love them. I love taking that bag of shit out of the turkey at Thanksgiving and frying them up with fucking salt. It's like popcorn. It's delicious. Well, that's a good segue into the addiction part of it. Fucking going home. So both of my parents were drug addicts. My dad was an alcoholic, more than a drug addict. But they were kind of neck and neck for a while there. My mother had been a drug addict since she was like 15 or 16. So she ran away from home, which, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I don't fucking blame her. My grandmother is akin to Tony Soprano's mother, Olivia. And I'll just fucking leave it at that. She ran away from home and she married some fucking dude. And he beat the shit out of her. She was only like 16. So she got addicted to drugs then. Fucking... He ended up like really beating the fuck out of her one day. And they parted ways after that. And she was clean when she met my father. And I don't know. I'll never know. You know, I never got to have these, an actual conversation with either one of them about everything before they died. Because I moved away. And that wasn't the kind of shit we talked about on the phone. Because the phone conversations were very brief. Especially with my mom. Because it was, oh God, just drain the fuck out of you. Holy shit. Talking to a fucking drug addict is like so exhausting. And it's so fucking unpredictable. And you just, oh my God, it's a lot. So I would keep them as brief as possible. I would talk to my dad a little bit longer. And I called him a little bit more. I was closer with him. But I would call him for fucking recipes all the time. And then that was pretty much it. So I never got to talk to them, so I don't know what her actual, drug use was when I was little. She smoked weed the whole time that she was pregnant with me. I remember my father telling me because he used to be like, that's why you are the way you are. And I don't know what his was either. It took me so long to even realize that my dad was doing fucking cocaine. And I was so, flabbergasted for some reason when I found out. Because he held himself together far fucking superior to my mother. My mother was very manic. She was so nice. She had the biggest heart. Jesus fuck, she would bring home fucking animals all the time. She brought home babies a couple times. I'm not going to talk about that because I have a bit about it that I can't. It's too close because it's the bit is just what happened, so I can't fucking fuck it up. But she had a really big heart. She just wanted to take care of everything and everybody. She just had no fucking faculties to do it with. And so I had a very normal child. She didn't go off the rails with it till I was 7th grade is when I remember shit getting fucked up. And the more fucked up she would get, my dad would come home less and his schedule would get more erratic and then that would make her more fucking erratic. And it sucked because I was so, well, and again, this is a different time. I was born in the 80s. So my brother is 8 years younger than me. There were no cell phones. It was still normal for your kids to for us to just be gone all day. There was this park program, or we would like ride our bike to the park, or like you'd get dropped off and you'd be there from 9 in the morning, and then you'd go to the other park, Trenton Town Park, and be there until like 5 or 6 p.m. and then find a way home. And if you biked, you wouldn't get home till like 7. It was totally fucking normal. And thank God, because my biggest fear, when my dad would like leave, and he got an apartment eventually, but because he just couldn't fucking do it. And he didn't know that my mom just would like leave. So my fear at that point is, it worked out perfectly because the bus schedule with the elementary school, and I had reduced scheduling in high school. So I could literally put my brother on the bus and then go to school. So nothing looked like it was wrong. And my dad would leave money in the mailbox in an envelope for what he thought was my mother, every so often. And she was just gone. She would just go into the city for, she'd come home, once in a while, and she would just like sleep for like 24 hours. And I was very capable of taking care of him. My father was, again, it was a different time. He gave me a cookbook when I was like 8, which is my son's age. And I won't even give Connor a fucking umbrella. And this man he just let me have, he was like, all right, go ahead, cook. Nobody home. I lit the kitchen on fire twice. But I was very capable of taking care of myself and another person. And my only fear at that time was I didn't want CPS to come in because I didn't want them to take him. I didn't want him to be taken from me. I couldn't, that was it. It was just keep him, make sure nobody knows. So we did that for a long time. And God, I think that's why I just feel so old and haggard all the time. Because it's like just a long time to fucking keep other people alive. Holy shit. But, eventually, I didn't even really get to talk to my dad about that. He knew eventually that she had, not been home all that time, but I don't think he ever knew to the extent. I honestly didn't mind it. Very peaceful. I think that's why I enjoy being home alone now so much. I like it's just peaceful. I didn't have a lot of alone time or peaceful fucking moments when I was younger. So now I'm just relish it. But, and one would think growing up like that I would have been hyper careful to not become a drug addict. And again, a different time. I started experimenting with drugs when I was in 9th grade. And I never had a fucking even one issue at all until after right before I got pregnant. But that was in tandem with, that was when I started to really question, I don't know, what the fuck am I doing with my life in general? Because my life was very nice and it was very easy and fun and convenient, but it was just nothing. I had nothing to, I definitely have always had that, I've always thrown myself into working out. That's always been, that's a really common, addict thing to do. That's still your addict brain, but you're putting out in something like that, which, consecutively my whole life right up until this very day. That is what I throw myself into. Because it gives you all of the dopamine and it gives you that. But it also goes hand in hand with a feeling of accomplishment. I love throwing myself into very difficult things now. just for the way, the shit that it activates in your... That's what I tell people. Force yourself to do difficult things because it becomes addictive. That part of your brain that it activates. But I started to go a little off the rails. Obviously, that's how I ended up fucking knocked up. Let's be honest. But, after that is when I had a problem. I just couldn't get a fucking grip. I don't know. It was mental health failings that were hand in hand with availability and access to it. And I'm talking about it now because I have such amazing stress handling capabilities now. And, I have a very good grip on my mental health. And so when I look back at that time, and it's so glaringly, you feel sorry. I feel bad for that version of me because I recognize it in other people. And, when something incredibly fucking stressful happens now, the very first thing I always think, I'm always like, holy shit, like, this is exactly why I used to fucking do drugs. Because, it pings that part of your head. It's just like, there's no sense of hopelessness like there was before. I can't remember who I was listening to the other day. And it was a man who, had been sober for like 7 years. And he's like, to everybody who, does excessive drugs or abuses drugs or is an addict, at that time, that seems like the only solution. Or sometimes it seems like the best solution. And usually that's just because you don't have the capabilities of problem solving when you're in emotional distress, so you can't think of any other fucking solution. And I get that. But also, when I'm going to talk about this, I went about things differently because my mother, this is fucking hilarious. So my mother had a couple stints where she was clean, including at the end when she died, ironically enough. But she would take us to AA meeting. No, not AA, sorry. NA meetings. Sometimes. And we would sit in the truck with it locked in the middle of some shitty part of fucking Utica. Fucking crackheads knocking on the fucking window, looking in the fucking window. And sometimes if it was just me, like sometimes I'd go in with her. And that's funny because there were other times when she was using, when she would drive us to a crack house. And it was like, you can tell it's a fucking crack house. It looks like a crack house. And she'd be like, I'm going to a meeting. And then she'd be in there for like 3 hours. While crackheads peered in the fucking window on the street. And having been to an NA meeting, which oddly enough also, I know people wouldn't, sometimes I feel like NA meetings are more conducive to people who would be attending an AA meeting. It's not religion based, and that's just me because I'm not a religious person. I know that that is the thing that helps a lot of people, but if that's not your thing, if that's the reason you're not going, try an NA meeting. But having gone to them myself, I knew that was not the route that I was looking for. So I was already really heavy into researching ibogaine, ayahuasca, mushroom, weed, fucking therapy, stuff like that. So I used And don't do this because I knew I could handle it, because the part of like, eating edibles and stuff that I lean into, that's why I can eat a 2,000 milligram edible and not pass away. I lean into the fucked up part of it. When you completely lose control, because I always get something out of it. Like, I have so many fucking things and thoughts racing through my mind all the time, especially because I'm unmedicated. And, so I've got, it's like 10 different, like, Rubik's Cubes fucking working in a very dusty environment. And sometimes shit will, like, figure itself out. Like, I'll literally have a problem, and it won't even be a problem I was focusing on. It'll be, like, one of the background ones. And it just gets fucking fixed. And that happens literally every single time. It is stressful. I don't do it all the time because it is, like, both physically and mentally fucking stressful. And that is the mechanism where if you are, like, predisposed to, like, schizophrenia or some shit like that, that can break you. There are people who do that amount of weed, not even mushrooms, who do that amount of weed and they don't come back mentally. Because I know that I am not in that category, and because I do have a general, like, enjoyment of it. I did do this. But I did, like, massive heroes doses of mushrooms and weed in tandem with microdosing and a couple other things it's different because it's not like you're an addict, so you abstain. It cured that complete part of my brain. And I know that because, like, a year after I stopped, I was like, and again, because I'm that kind of person, I was like, I wonder. And I tried to do drugs again, and I was like, ew. No, thank you. So, I have my medical card, which it's such a great thing. Like, the state makes tons of money. I wish it wasn't so fucking regulated. I don't agree with that. I don't like that they put a cap on the amount of flour. Before it was just the amount of flour. Now they have a cap on the other shit too, which, for shame. You're missing out on tons of money by doing that also. State of Florida, Ron DeSantis. But, it's just, I needed to go a different way. But because there is no stress of, like, I feel like people who go through NA and AA, there's always that slight sliver of, like, I could fall back into it. And I don't have that. So it's like you've started life over with, like, a different fucking card fucking inserted in there. But it's weird because the older I get, and, I was a child of addicts. I was an addict as a mother. And I wish now, as I get older, that my parents were alive. So, for many reasons. I fucking miss the shit out of both of them. But more than anything, to be able to say, like, I fucking get it. For the first time in my life, I don't even know if I was harboring a lot of bad feelings. I don't think I was. Because I had a great fucking life. I had that, like, not perfect amount, but, like, that appropriate amount of, like, trauma to make you funny. I have an endless amount of fucking stand-up material, so I'll never have to talk about my fucking crotch. But I'm also extremely high-functioning because I've had to, figure shit out for a long time. So I'm very happy to be the way that I am. I know lots of people are not. Lots of people hate that I'm the way that I am, but I don't care. Because that goes part and parcel with the whole, this is why I love the way that I am. There's just so much fuckery you don't give a shit about. I think the thing that I've heard the most people say to me my entire life is, tell us how you really feel, Sarah. So I'm very proud that I speak my mind all the time. I've been punched in the face by 3 different grown men. Also, though, I'm not gonna, like, like, I always tell the nail bitch when she fucks up my nails, but I also get punched a lot. It's called balance. But, yeah, I don't know. I have, it gives you also deep empathy for... I have a good grip on that, towing that line of... if I have a friend who is an addict, which I do. I have friends that are addicts. I have less of them now than ever before, though, because I know the amount of... Everybody deserves chances. You know, I have lied. I have cheated. I've stolen. I have hurt people unintentionally. I have intentionally fucking hurt people. It's fucking life. I didn't get it right the first time. I fucked up a couple times. But I was always progressing. It's okay to fuck up, but you can't drop all the way back down to fucking baseline. That won't work. You know, if you keep doing the piece of shit things all the way through, you know, then you are going to run out of chances. And that was the hardest thing for me to get a grip on, was like being like, okay, no more. Because I'm very endeared. It's very easy for me to feel very sympathetic and empathetic for fucking addicts. You know, I have this innate desire to help them and feel sorry for them. But also, you can't enable them also. Which was, you know, my dad enabled the fuck out of my mom. Because he would just throw money at her. Because she would be so fucking crazy to get her out of her face. I did it before. She showed up in my apartment one night, and I literally just baseball threw fucking money at her. Because I was like, I gotta work in the morning, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. But such is life. But yes, I do wish that I was able to explain to my parents that, as a parent now, sometimes shit's fucked up. Sometimes shit is so fucked up that you're just like, fuck. So I get it. I understand why you did drugs. I understand why I did fucking drugs, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's also why I go so hard in the paint the other way now. With, again, get yourself healthy. You can also order. I have I have tons. I'm not like a doomsday prepper, but I'm like a little bit. Like, we have like fucking bags, not bags, they're in buckets, like buckets of MREs. My garage is full of tactical equipment. We have like extras of stuff, but I have a ton of suture kits and like laceration trays. That's stuff that you can order. You don't need to get as many as I have. My dad left me a lot of them. But maybe get a couple. Maybe order a suture kit and just fuck around with it. You can order the pigskin. I have a bunch of it because that's what I used to practice tattooing on. Before I started just fucking maiming myself. But little stuff like that. And start bringing yourself up to date on the real diet you should be eating versus the standard American diet, which will fucking kill you. Also, side note, my mom was an addict her whole fucking life. That bitch did drugs her whole goddamn life. And the thing that killed her at the end is she was... I don't even know if she was clean. I don't know. This was just via phone, me having this information. She seemed like she was clean. I think she was, because she was scheduled to have her fucking leg amputated. And she was in a lot of pain. She had lupus, and she also had gotten hepatitis C from doing drugs, and it eroded like lesions in her leg, and that developed into further problems. So fast forward, but they couldn't even schedule her until she got clean. This was like an ongoing thing for like 6 months. She had a scheduled date. So I'm assuming that meant they tested her and she was actually clean. That doesn't make sense either, though, because then she wouldn't have been taking... She was probably lying. But anyway, the thing that killed her, she did crack. That was her drug of choice. Even when, like, before she spent all the money, when we were rich, she even did crack then, which is so fucking strange. Because, I don't know. Maybe that's just, like, a thing I have in my head from, like, Dave Chappelle. But, it was fucking fentanyl. That she took a pain pill, one pill, because her leg was just an open fucking wound. And obviously she didn't have health insurance, and Medicaid is just like fucked. So she didn't have access to anything she needed for it. And she took a pain pill, and that's it. So even somebody with a tolerance like that, that's why, like, fucking man, you're brave doing fucking drugs. Non-natural drugs, anyway. If it grows in the ground. It should be legal, first the fuck of all, everything. But, and then again, Dad had a heart attack, which was that was a mixture of him eating probably the diet they prescribe you, which is completely counterintuitive when you break it down and look at what the foods they tell you to eat actually do to your fucking body. And all the drugs. So, again, I wish I had known then what I know now. But how often do we say that bullshit? I'll gradually start adding more Halloween things to this as we go on. Probably by next week I'll be in costume. I have a Mary Todd Lincoln and a priest costume that I've been just dying to wear, so they'll become more unhinged as we go. All right, thanks for hanging in there for the depressing part of it. I gotta figure out, I have so many people that I want to fucking do a podcast with, and I just need to get my shit together. I still haven't bought a real second microphone. The one I have now sucks dick. All right. Love you. Bye. We'll see you next week.